Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Learn with Jason. Today on the show, we have Ben Holmes. Ben, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Yeah, good to
I
meet you.
am. I'm super excited to have you here on the show. It's been a lot of fun watching you kind of develop in public and build your own visual language for sharing your updates. I see you brought your co-star the whiteboard with you today.
It's my ride
So
or die.
so for folks who aren't familiar, you want to give us a little bit of a background on yourself?
Yeah, sure. Oh shoot, I'm getting a lot of audio feedback right now. Sorry.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm not sure why I didn't hear it in the original.
do you have the Twitch on with audio enabled?
I don't have the Twitch pulled up. No.
Interesting. Okay. Um,
Hmm.
let me check on my side to make sure I'm not sending anything back to you. I shouldn't be sending anything back to you.
Okay, let me see here. Now I'm hearing myself. What am I
Oh,
missing?
oh,
Oh, are you seeing anything?
I'm not getting anything through on my side, so I'm not sure where it's coming from.
Me neither.
Did I get contacts? I did not get contacts. I just don't actually need my glasses. I just wear them because, you know, everybody wants to look cool. But then I started playing with new lighting setups, and I was getting weird shadows. So I was like, you know what? I'd rather have good lighting than look cool. See Jamin's in the chat. Are you still getting feedback?
Let me try. Yes, I am.
Oof. Are you? Let's see. The captioner's hearing echo
Oh
from
wait,
Ben
hang
as
on.
well.
Oh wait, I muted your computer sound. I found this option and now I don't hear myself.
Hey, all
Is that
right,
working?
all
Is that
right.
good?
How's that for you, Rachel? You good? Okay, we're gonna move on the
I
assumption
think
that
we're
we're
gonna roll with it.
okay. All right,
All
here we
right,
go. Here we
cool.
go. All right, everybody, we are
We
gonna
did
kick
it.
right in here. So, Ben, did we answer the question before
We've
I spun
answered
off?
nothing.
Okay, here's what
What
we're
was
gonna
the
do. We're
question?
gonna pretend like nothing happened. All
Roll it back.
right. All right. So, Ben, for folks who aren't familiar with your work, do you want to give us a little bit of a background on yourself?
Absolutely. So I'm Ben. I use whatever front end framework looks the shiniest, and been doing web development for a while now. Just kind of soaking up every podcast and side project that I possibly could. And then eventually started rebuilding my personal site. And my challenge was I'm not allowed to use any frameworks at all, but I need to
Mm-hmm.
pull off single page apps. I need to use cool templating languages. I need to have all the good stuff, and I have to build it by hand. And the journey was, I don't recommend it, but it forced me to learn every Node API in existence to write files to the system and all that. So I eventually realized Eleventy does a lot of this work for you. And I
Mm-hmm.
started going a little deeper on it on like, wow, you can add your own extensions if you want to. You can use whatever template you want. You can like register it inside of your Eleventy app. So the rest is kind of history after I learned about all the things Eleventy can do, the undocumented things Eleventy can do at the
Mm-hmm.
time. So yeah, just kept
Yeah.
plowing on that and ended up maintaining an open source project. It's my first one. I learned how to npm publish in July, and it's definitely started to take off more than I expected. So I guess
so
thanks for that, and I'm feeling out how this stuff works as I go.
So in July here, you learned how to NPM publish. We are now not even 7 months from then,
Yep.
and you are pushing toward. Are you at 1.0 on Slinkity or?
Oh, not even close. It will be. I don't know when it will be. It depends on when we're comfortable with the features. Where it's almost
Mm,
like when you build a feature, you think of two more. So you have to stop yourself at some point and say, this is probably ready to be stable. But the main thing was like, we got to support every framework We can't just be a React plugin thingy. So in general, like our goal is to make this slot into any Eleventy project, and we can get into details of Slinkity after this, of course. But it will definitely take some time to feel out when a 1.0 feels good. But
So
yeah.
So you mentioned that you are somebody who uses every framework under the sun. And I think that it puts you in a good position to answer a question that usually comes off a little bit biased because everybody's got their pet framework, right? So why would you reach for Eleventy versus a React meta framework versus SvelteKit versus, there's so many options out in the space right now. So
I know.
how are you reasoning through when to make the right, like what are the trade-offs and when do you change what the trade-offs are worth to you?
Exactly. It's like we've made getting into web dev so easy that it's never been harder to at least find a starting point.
Somebody
Because it's
quote
like
tweet that right now.
it's a tough one because everyone has come up with like the cleanest way to do things, and there are so many clean ways now. And I guess the reason I liked Eleventy at the time was, well, I was trying to build things with my bare hands. I liked the idea of, I guess I'm more of a web dev enthusiast in that way, so there is bias. But I feel like Eleventy lets you start with the absolute primitive tools if you want to. I originally called Slinkity the static site generator that grows with you. Too many words, but the reason for it was like you start with HTML and then you can apply some CSS with a link tag. It's all pretty simple. And if you look at the build folder, you understand your build folder. At first, it's just kind of copy pasting the HTML you're writing. And then if you're a beginner, then you might learn Markdown, for example. And you put in the Markdown file, you see, oh, it becomes an HTML file on the other side. That's pretty simple. And then you can start thinking about, I want to apply layouts around this. And then you can start getting into templating syntax with liquid or nunjucks. And then later down the road, if you decide like now I'm building dynamic things and I want to use React, Vue, or Svelte, whatever I've decided to learn, because they're all equally good at solving the problem of like, I need an interactive thing on my page. You should be able to pick that up. And that's kind of where the Eleventy timeline stopped, was like, you got to go set up Webpack or something yourself if you want to go any further than I have a markdown file and some CSS. Even Sass is something that they don't help you with out of the box. So this is kind of a new point of like, let's bring in a cool little bundler called Vite that helps you with, first off, Sass and like helping you with your styles. And also bringing in any of those interactive frameworks just piecemeal. Like I want to insert a React component on this markdown file I lovingly made my first week of web development. Well, then you can say insert React here, here's my component, and then you can see it appear on your page. And you can learn about hydration and server rendering and all of those other fancy words as you go. But that's generally the point, is like, as you learn more tools, you can just keep throwing them on. You don't have to, there's not a point where it's like, I go from Eleventy to Next.js. The analogy I gave is like, that's going from a salad to a burger. It's like, there's a middle ground of like, I can have both and progressively move up.
You're on dangerous ground here, Ben. We have strong opinions about burgers.
Strong burger opinions. Okay. But,
no, I think what you're saying
is
right. I mean, the point you're making here is really solid, that we have, there's a spectrum. And what I found interesting is that in a lot of choices, they're presented as all or nothing. And you feel like you get put into this camp of, well, I want an interactive website, so I have to load all this JavaScript in to make that happen. Or I want a lightweight website that has no JavaScript, and therefore I can only ship, I can't ship any JavaScript, and anything I build has to be written by hand, which has this perceived level of difficulty that starts to lean toward like, I'm a web perf specialist, and therefore I don't use whatever the frameworks are because I'm going to code golf down and get as few kilobytes of JavaScript as possible on the page. And so what I find interesting about the work that you're doing with Slinkity, the work that we're seeing from Isles.js and Astro is this concept. Now, you said the word hydration. I'm going to make you sort of explain it, because these are introducing what's being called the islands architecture, or I've also heard it referred to as partial hydration. So can you go into a little bit about what that means when we say partial hydration?
Yeah, I feel like it's a term that you never thought about because you're either not using a framework or you're
Mm-hmm.
using a framework that kind of just slaps all of the JavaScript onto the page and you don't really think about it. Like
Mm-hmm.
Next.js, all my routes, of course, I can use a state variable and I can just react everything. So to explain what hydration is first, it's just taking, first off, your server rendering something. So like if I'm building a site, and we'll just talk about like a static site, for example,
Mm-hmm.
where I have one route, the homepage on my site, and maybe it takes in some data from somewhere and it slots that into a React component that renders all of the marketing info on my homepage. Well, what you can first do is when you're building that page, you can squeeze out all of the HTML and CSS that's inside of that component. So if it renders out this list of products that we sell, then we can
Mm-hmm.
just take that list and we can put it in as straight HTML on the page. So like even if you had JavaScript turned off, you would see this list of items that you were able to create at build time.
And
And then
that's the benefit, right? That's what people want. They're like, well, I don't want someone on a feature phone in, middle America where they've got 2G speeds to not be able to load our site because it has, so much JavaScript on it. So
yeah,
that's the carrot, right? Is like I want to ship as little as possible to the user and let them be able to interact with this website. And the trade-off is then that some of the interactivity is missing because you don't have heavy JavaScript. Sorry, and I
yeah.
just jumped all over you there. So please continue.
No, it's worth flagging like, wait, why are you squeezing out the HTML? Do I care?
Right.
The answer is probably. So you see something when you first visit the page. And then the next step is you ship basically a copy of that component. But this copy has all of the button clicks wired up. Like if you use a state variable and said, like, when I click on this image carousel, go to the next image. Well, that's going to require JavaScript. You can't write HTML that slides between images, at least not yet. I'm sure there's work on someone trying to do that. But if you want to hydrate it, then you ship that component and then it sort of crawls your page top to bottom, or at least in the context of like everything the component spit out. And then it attaches the little event listeners to it. I kind of think of it as like Lego bricks, where like you have the HTML, which is like the base Lego brick, and then has these little teeth on top that the other one can kind of go on top of. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're using a framework, it will give you the way that they prefer to hydrate, where it's like, point me to the HTML and I will hydrate your component inside of that HTML. And I'll tell you that everything matches up. And if it doesn't, then something went wrong. So that's
Yeah.
generally what hydration does.
And so to repeat that back to you and make sure that I understand it in a very reduced kind of way, we have say a React component. That React component is going to put an input field on the screen. But when you server side render, we take the React, we execute it on the server, we get plain HTML, and then we ship that generated HTML, whatever the React compiles to. That's what ships down. That's a pre-generated site, so no JavaScript required for that to work. Then when we hydrate, we load JavaScript that looks at the generated page and says, "Oh, I recognize this," and then it turns it back into a React component,
Pretty much.
so that you can then interact with it. So this is I would say this is what we could call the great compromise of modern web development, where
Yes.
what we're saying is we don't want people who don't have JavaScript to not be able to use our sites. We want somebody with JavaScript disabled to be able to navigate the site and see things and click around. And that's why we server render our JavaScript. But because of the way that these frameworks are built, it feels like you have to fully rehydrate them into apps in order to get any of the benefits of working with them because of the way that we've taught each other how to build things. You've got global state. You've got, a lot of like, a component over here has to hold on to state for a component that's way over here, and you've got to be able to share those things around. And ultimately, it's like, well, it's just easier to rehydrate the whole app. And
Yes.
the islands architecture is challenging that assumption, right?
It is. And I feel like there's a lot of sort of approaches in the space that are trying to challenge it. Also, I see your comment, Austin, on the side of my face. I'll face the camera here. So what we're missing.
No,
is
now
a
that
few-
you're making a point, right? It's like, let me tell you what we're missing.
now hydration. Okay. So there's a few ways to approach it. Like the first way is build a whole new framework that's smarter about hydration. So instead of like hydrating every element on the page, including the stuff that doesn't have button clicks. Like, why am I shipping JavaScript to re-render a list of items? It's like, it didn't need JavaScript, but I still have to ship the bundle. So there are frameworks like Marco and Quick. Marco's been around for a while, but it's only just seeing, like, I don't know. I've only just heard about it, but it's been used by eBay for a while, where you can sort of choose which parts of your app are going to ship JavaScript and which aren't, which is kind of a cool way to do it. And Quick is doing a similar thing with JSX. So if you're coming from React, it could be more familiar. But the problem with that approach, of course, is you scrap everything and rebuild from the ground up, which people are scared of. So the compromise of Island's architecture is like, all right, bring React, Vue, Svelte, Preact, whatever you want. And instead of hydrating the whole page, we'll ask you to start with plain HTML. And this is something that Astro does, for example, with their Astro files, where you write some stuff that doesn't ship JavaScript in an Astro file, and it's basically HTML. And then you put little tags to say, insert component here, etc. So you can, take in data and render that same list of products on your marketing site. And you can write that with HTML. And then when you need to insert an image carousel, then you use their special syntax to insert the React component where that image carousel is necessary. So it's a good approach if you have like a good split of static and non-static content. And it starts to have diminishing returns when it's like, we need JavaScript for like 90% of things. And in that case, it's like, we're not really doing much for you because you have to use JavaScript for most of it. But there are so many sites where you don't even realize, like, okay, maybe our site is 90% JavaScript, but there are entire pages, entire routes that don't need JavaScript whatsoever. So if we could opt out for like our homepage where we get all of our traffic and then just ship JavaScript for like the checkout flow, then that could be a huge win for just having no slowdowns and getting people that homepage instantly. So you can sort of make decisions by route as well as just for your entire app.
And you said something that I think to me was the most compelling thing about this Islands architecture, which is that with other approaches, what you see is this need or this push to kind of throw out one or the other thing. You're saying, well, I'm either going all in on React because that's what I know, and I'm just going to deal with the hydration costs and all that because it's going to let me solve the one dynamic use case I have. Or you're saying, well, throw out frameworks entirely. You're going to work with, in Eleventy's case, you're going to write Nunjux or Liquid or something, and you don't get any JavaScript. If you want JS, you got to write that completely by hand. And what I think is really compelling about this Islands architecture is it's saying, no, build your whole site in React. We're just going to SSR it by default, and then just tell us which pieces you want to be interactive. And like, so that's the approach that, say, Astro takes, where they're like, yeah, whatever, just write only React components. We'll just compile the whole thing down to HTML. And if you want it to be interactive, just tell us, and we'll make that piece interactive. And the approach that you're taking, and that we're seeing with like the Eleventy style, is you're saying, yeah, bring whatever component you want, just drop that thing right into Eleventy, and Slinkity will grab that thing and turn it into an interactive piece, and you can just, the rest of your site that's only static, never think about whether or not you have to SSR that or how that would work. So it's interesting because it hits people on both ends of the spectrum and brings them to what I would consider to be the rational middle, the pragmatic middle, where you can't say no JavaScript. Like, it's really hard to build great web experiences with zero JavaScript. There are absolutely exceptions to that rule, but like for the most part in modern experiences, you're going to sprinkle a little bit of JavaScript things in there as progressive enhancements and experience enhancements that are going to really make a big difference in the way that you feel using the web. But also, you shouldn't ship JavaScript for everything. So we want that pragmatic middle where we get a balance.
Yeah, it's like finally recognizing there's a spectrum in the first place.
Yes.
I felt like there are two completely different approaches. And it's like, well, I probably need something in the middle. Most do. But you have these polarized sides. So this is kind of a way. And I also like that it switches. Like if you're using JavaScript, you're switching your mindset from opt-out to opt-in. I think that's something that Astro has been talking about a lot, is like, it's about opting in to shipping the JavaScript. If you have to opt out, it's like a really high percentage of people, I forgot what the survey was, but like most people stick with defaults in whatever they're using. So they're going to ship JavaScript with everything until they get those tickets saying performance is too slow in X market because our analytics said so. It's
Right.
like devs are going to choose the path of least resistance to get something shipped, which is totally understandable. So
You
it
know,
makes more sense to be like, don't hydrate until you put that flag on that component that says yes, JavaScript. And they have to ask themselves every time.
I think that this is something that is absolutely critical for framework authors and anybody building software for other developers to understand, is that the defaults matter. They matter so much. They matter so much that I actually wrote a whole like blog post about this that I'll share in the show notes. But there's research that when you set up defaults, it will increase. I think it was they did a test at Disney World or something where they switched the side from French fries to fruit or a salad or something. It was just the default. If you didn't change your choices, you would just get the salad instead of the fries. Nobody wants a McDonald's salad. Nobody's looking at that going, that's exactly what I was craving today. But 50% more people got it because it was the default. And so I think what's really fascinating as we're building tools for developers is what we're doing is we're paving a happy path. We're saying, hey, when you get under time pressure and you have to build a site and you literally could not care less about the quality of that site, you're going to do whatever the defaults are in this framework. And if those defaults are setting people up to fail by saying, oh, well, this isn't accessible by default. This doesn't have good performance on low power phones. This doesn't have a fallback for people without JavaScript. We're basically telling people like, yeah, our framework by default thinks that you shouldn't care about those edge cases. But when frameworks invert that and they say, yeah, you should opt in to JavaScript. You should opt in to things that escape you out of the accessible happy path. This is something that I've really loved about what I'm seeing from Remix, for example, is that they're taking accessibility as like a default play, so that as you start building with these frameworks, you're making good choices when you are lazy. And I think that is such a thing we really glaze over that as we're building out our demos. We're like, well, whatever, we'll just build the crappy demo and then engineers will go and do the extra work to make it good. They don't. They copy paste your crappy example into production.
Don't worry, man. It's an MVP. We'll fix it. Fast follow epic. No, it's fine. No, I know.
But yeah, so I'm really excited about this. So in specific, let's talk about Slinkity. So Slinkity has been making a lot of progress. It is kind of becoming somewhat legendary because you've been doing these videos where you have somehow made a whiteboard a kind of co-host to the effect that the whole time we've been speaking, the chat has been trying to get the whiteboard to have a moment to speak on its own, which is incredible, right? So how I really want to get into actually using Slinkity here, but let's take a quick second to just pay homage to the whiteboard. Let's talk a little bit about where did this even come from?
It's a good question. I'll speak for them. It started with when I first sort of put out the NPM project into the ether. And I would shout out AGC Web Dev for saying, just ship something. Because I almost did it. I almost sat on this for another few months because I didn't really know what it was. But in the end, it's like, if you just get it out there, like, sure, you don't have that many GitHub stars, but it's public and your to-dos are also public on that issue log. So people will eventually jump in and start helping with it. And it's also good for you to have some more accountability. So all of that, I decided to ship. And I still have pretty much nothing except iMovie and a reasonably nice microphone that some Discord server recommended to me. So with that, it was like, well, all these tech products have these really flashy, they're very well produced videos of like the logo comes into view and it sort of like opens this door and it shows these code snippets, but they're like flying at you with like a transition effect. And I'm like, I don't want to make that because it's not ready for that.
What I really want
I have a whiteboard
now,
in my closet. That's what's happening.
I have a request for you to do practical effects with the whiteboard. Like just roll it and like lean it and give yourself the flying in logo. So it just kind of like comes into.
The whiteboard just flies into view.
I'm
Oh my
so
God.
ready.
I need a
I'm
green
ready.
screen. I know this. I'm gonna go.
A green
Definitely
screen
gonna get
is definitely worthwhile. I've had a lot of fun with green screens, and yeah, maybe I let Chris Biscardi talk me into making some maybe poor buying decisions, and I have a whole lot more gear coming. So I'm going to try to make even sillier things soon. Okay,
I love it.
So Ben, I feel like we've been talking about this, and now I just want to see it go. So let's. You ready? Do you want to teach some Slinkity today?
Yeah, let's try it out.
All right, let me switch over to the other view. Here we are. We're in the other view. So before we start, I'm going to make a quick shout out to our live captioning. We have Rachel here from White Coat Captioning today, taking all this down. It's on the homepage of the site. You can find that at learnwithjason.dev. And today is a day to celebrate because we've got new sponsors, everyone. So Netlify is still sponsoring as expected, but we have added NX. NX is a very cool way to do monorepos. They've put a lot of work into their tooling, into a CLI that makes this stuff so pleasant to work with. I do not like working with monorepos most of the time. With NX, I've actually enjoyed it. There is an episode on NX if you want to learn about it. We had somebody from the show or from NX on the show, and I will find it. Where is it? Here it is. Yeah. So you can find that right here. Get on there, see how it works. It's very, very cool. And we also have Backlight. And Backlight is a way for you to build a design system in code. And it's really nice. It's really easy to work with. I really enjoyed it. We also had Backlight. We had George from Backlight on the show. And this is another tool that you can use. So welcome to both NX and Backlight as sponsors. Really appreciate it. It makes the show more accessible to more people. With that, we're talking about Slinkity. So here's the website for slinkity.dev. And we're talking to Ben, who I need to pull up your Ben Holmes dev.
It is
there
B
you are.
Holmes dev,
That's
sadly.
B Holmes. Oh, I was so close.
I guess there is a Ben Holmes dev. I didn't even try for it.
All right, there. All right, go follow Ben for all your whiteboard related content. I've reached the end of things I know. What should I do next?
Lovely. Well, we haven't really even said what Slinkity is, but what we're going to do is we're going to set up a Slinkity project here with our new npm init command that will give us some nice frameworks to try out. Yes.
All right.
And this is something that Eleventy's been missing for a bit. Is like with Eleventy, you kind of just have to start with a directory and go. But it's like you can learn so much from an init. It's so much fun to like answer some questions and you got a project. So
yeah,
threw one together. And we're going to be demoing a Canary build today. And it's not the official one. So I will warn you. This is not ready to use on your sites yet. That's because we have a lot of bugs to work out. Namely, production builds do not work properly. So we're not going to demo production builds with this today, but the stable version is ready to go if you like React.
Oh my God.
We're going to keep a running log of any bugs found today, but I'm sure there will be many. So let's go ahead and just kind of set it up. So yes, all you need to run, taking a breath, npm init slinkity @canary.
Okay. That's it. No flags.
Nope.
All right, here we go. npm init slinkity. Okay to proceed.
Yep.
What is my project called? I'm going to call this Let's Learn Slinkity because that's easy for me.
Nice.
All
and with
right.
this, you can select which frameworks you want, if any. I'd suggest hitting the A key to demo all of them, but you can pick and choose or use none if you just want help with your CSS.
Let's make it happen.
If you hit enter, you get some simple instructions.
Okay, npm init.
And don't forget to have fun. That's lost on people. So we note it here. This will take a moment. You can use any tool, by the way. If you want to use yarn or pnpm, that's totally fine.
All right. Did we get through here?
We have
Good.
things.
We have things. So I'm going to open up the code
Let's check it out.
and got a few things to look at. So there's Vue, React, Svelte, all in the same code base, along with some Markdown. That's exciting. And then I believe the command was npm start.
Yes.
There we go. All right. So Slinkity serve incremental, serving files from
See,
site.
it pre-bundles quite a few things because we need the dependencies for every framework, as well as some renderers that we can look at in the config file so that you can set them up yourself. And with this, we have a cool little site using the same theming you might expect, and 3 Slinkies, each rendered with a different framework. We should probably label which ones they are, but we can look at that in the code in a second. And if you want to click on this button for the next hour, I don't blame you, because I did that after we were done.
This is a really nice, this is a good demo. I like it.
It's so much.
It's so much more fun than like, I know the easy one to show is a counter, right? Because it's a
and
very
there are
logical
counters
thing
if you
to
go
show.
to the pages, because just ran out of steam. So if you click on these are entire pages that are rendered with a component. These aren't using partial hydration, but we will walk towards where you can use any of these as a templating language and partially hydrate any other component inside of that template, which is wacky to think about. Like you can slap a Vue component inside of your JSX if you want to go crazy.
Oof, but, all right.
Yeah, oof. That is very experimental. We'll see if it works. But we have a demo of Vue and a demo of Svelte. They're all rather similar, but of course they're using the frameworks that are labeled. And some deployment options. Once we get production builds working on this canary, you would deploy with these commands here. And Netlify is our simplest example, of course. So we've included those instructions and a Netlify TOML file. But of course, you can use whatever you want. It's a static site. There's no servers to maintain with all of this. So yeah,
nice.
That's what we're looking at.
All right, so I'm ready here. I wanna learn more of this. And also, there were 2 questions in the chat. So let me answer the first one from Shin Spiegel. Why the folder area on the right side of the screen? Let me show you with a quick example. When I am working on code, I like to collapse the sidebar. And when it's on the right side, it doesn't bounce my code around. That's why it's on the right-hand side. And then Brian, this was not a question, actually. This was just a really helpful thing. He's noting you can add Slinkity to an Eleventy project after the fact, right? So this is not something where you have to like start fresh.
Yeah, and our docs explain that actually on our quick start is you can either use npm init Slinkity, see all the cool features, or you can, if you go to the package JSON, actually, you can see that all we do is we just install Slinkity alongside Eleventy. Eleventy is a peer dependency, and they're both dev, yeah. So Slinkity is kind of just another attachment. And at the moment, we have a special CLI command. So you see the start script is actually Slinkity serve incremental instead of Eleventy serve incremental. So I will say all the flags pass through to Eleventy. So if you're already using like Eleventy serve incremental port, whatever, quiet, like all their flags, you can just find and replace Eleventy with Slinkity and it'll work the same, including with the browser sync server. So if you're using browser sync middleware, that works as well. And beyond this point, we're working to even ditch the CLI and just have Slinkity be a plugin, because the nice thing about Vite is it can slot into an existing dev server, which is actually what we're doing. And it'll just manage the live reload events for you instead of letting browser sync do all the work. So with that, there's a couple issues on the Eleventy side that we're resolving, but they're all small. And once they're ready, we can ditch the CLI, open up the door for Eleventy serverless and all of their fancy features. But for now, you just have this little CLI command to get going. But yeah, the vision is like, this extends Eleventy. This isn't some new meta framework.
And so this is just kind of standard, whatever we want. We can do edits, save it, and it shows right up. That is, I mean, so we get all the things that I like about Eleventy. I'm editing, I'm getting live reloads, all those good things. So if I want to write React, this is straight up React. Like there's nothing magic here. The only
This
thing
is
I'm
straight
seeing
React.
that looks a little bit magic is this front matter export, and
Yes.
that's pretty straightforward.
So
So this just lines up to my markdown basically.
yes, and I will say, like, the thesis of this is that we extended our plugin ecosystem a little bit further. Where, like, in Astro, you can support any component inside of an Astro file, but with
Mm-hmm.
this, you can support any component within any other page, like Markdown or a React page or Vue page, or you can support it as the page template itself. So as long as you tell us how do you get front matter out of this component, so we can slot it into
Right.
Eleventy's big old set of data, then you're good to go. You can use whatever you want. So in the end, once this like gets really stable, you can turn any file into an Astro file if you want to think about it that way.
Interesting. Okay. All right. That's very cool. I
Yes.
mean, I actually love this. I think that one of the things that is really promising about this approach is that it gives me the things that I liked about Gatsby, which were,
Mhm.
I already know React. I had to use it for work before I started building my own projects and stuff. And so when I went to build my first personal blog that wasn't, I think I was on Hugo forever because Hugo was so fast, but I don't write Go, so I didn't really know what I was doing, and I managed to break that site. So rather than learn Go, I decided to rebuild it in a language I knew, which was React. Gatsby presented this way to just create a page, and then it was a static page, right?
Mhm.
This is so nice from the standpoint of, like, I get this mental model of a file is a page. So file-based routing feels really familiar.
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
not learning an extra templating language that kind of side chains to React, which is maybe my one gripe about Astro, is that you have to have like an Astro page and then you load a React component into it. I think they might have changed that. But the like, this feels good. This feels familiar. So, all right, I'm on board with this. And if I want to change it, so I'll go over to this React page. It says React to this. I love it.
Yes. So
Like,
if
it's
you
just
want to
fun.
know like kind of what it's doing is like because I feel like some people in the audience might be like, what the heck is front matter? In general, it's a way to kind of like export data for other layouts to be able to access. So here we have a few things on the top: title and layout. Layout is something Eleventy picks up to figure out what layout file do I use. And you can
Mhm.
find the layout file inside of the includes folder. Um, and if you've used like Next.js or something, includes is basically components. They're all junk drawers, just with a different name. And in here, you can see title being slotted in because when you expose it on front matter, all the layouts up the chain have access to that title. So no need for like React Helmet, for example. You can just
Mhm.
whip up an HTML file and manually insert all of the things that you need. So that's all we're doing here, really. And you can even
That's
dynamically
really
change
nice.
the browser title. Yeah. And layout specific. And of course, hydrate is our, special sauce that allows you to, if you want to hydrate the entire page on and off, but avoid hydrating layouts that are used outside of that page, you can just flip on the toggle for the entire thing.
Okay.
Or you can choose to partially hydrate within it. So this is like the
So
simpler use case.
I want to try something, which is, so let's take a look here. Let's look at the dev tools, and I want to see what's coming in from the network. How do I get more of these to go away? There's too many things.
I'd love to know.
There we go.
What
Okay.
people's advice are. Ooh, okay. I'll
So
remember to hit that.
here we have.
You might need to refresh,
What is-
actually. I know there's more than this.
I'm
I think you have
filtering. Okay, so
that's it.
clear, try again. All right, so what we are bringing in is the React page, the client. We've got some fonts, some files. Let's look at the JavaScript here. So we're bringing in, React. We've got some environment stuff, some client things. Now, some of this is going to be part of, like, browser sync is dev only. It's not part of the build.
Correct.
But what I'm interested in is, can we do a React page that doesn't rehydrate?
Absolutely. So
All
if
right,
you head back to that page, just delete hydrate eager.
Oh, all right, let's do it. Just delete it altogether.
Yep.
Get out of here. Okay, so I'm going to refresh this.
Check the dev server. I've noticed issues with this on the recent build. Yeah, all right. Restart the server.
Here we go.
We're working this one
again.
out.
All right, let's try this again. Uh-oh.
Oh, what's going on now?
There it goes. Okay, I think it just wasn't started yet. So let me restart the page here. And now we're looking more like, okay, so this is only the browser thing. We're not bringing in React. We're not bringing in any of that stuff. And the trade-off is that our counter doesn't work anymore. So we don't have a like functional React component, but everything else in here, like, you know, this is a a details element, and so we can do, you know, interactive-ish things like that. We just can't have like buttons with state and everything. Everything else just works though, and that's really exciting to me.
Yeah, exactly.
And so when we publish,
yeah.
Like if I run a build, actually, can we try this real quick? I'm gonna run a build, and so
this will hit things. As I mentioned, production builds are messed up with Vue and Svelte at the moment. So
I got you.
Canaries be canaries. But if you run, you can run npm init Slinkity to get like a stable project if you want to see how that guy builds.
Okay, we can do that later. We'll deal with that later on. But yeah, so we have the ability, once this builds, it won't include the browser sync. Does it include the other two files?
The other two. So
there was a
if we go back
and an MJS.
I can explain these.
Okay, so let me look at. Let's clear everything. Reload. Oops, it's dead.
It's dead.
Try again. There it is. All right, so we've got this client file.
Yes.
And
so
this is giving us back.
One.
Yeah.
What this is doing is it's loading some SCSS on the fly, because at the top of our document, we're actually loading like the grid background and everything you're seeing. So just to make the dev server faster, it loads it as this sort of V-dish chunk that will turn into a regular CSS file in a production build. So that's where we're rendering.
Oh, I didn't even catch that. You're just throwing Sass right in here.
Yeah, this is something that Eleventy users will appreciate, where in Eleventy you have to set up like a gulp process that goes into your styles folder, compiles the CSS, and you have to wait for it every time you save. But because we're using Vite, the beauty of it is it's not a JavaScript bundler, it's a website bundler, which means that your HTML files are like this sort of input, and it can scan for things like this and say, oh, SCSS, well, I know what to do with that. I'm going to turn this into CSS on the fly and serve that up to you in the browser. So instead of recompiling all your styles and setting up the build pipeline yourself, you just teach Vite how to recognize certain file extensions, and it'll just handle it for you while you're developing.
And then when it builds, it'll just do a replacement in place.
Exactly, yeah. It'll generate a CSS file and update this link here to just say CSS. And the only other interesting thing is that little like at root. That's because we're referencing a file that's outside of our output directory, because we're not pass-through copying our styles or anything. So this basically says, go to the root of my project, back out of everything, and load it straight from here. So it's a little helpful alias, because Eleventy works with build folders.
Yeah, that's dope. This is cool. This is what I like about this is it tackles a few things that are not hard, but they're hard enough that if I'm trying to get up and running with a framework, my least favorite thing is when I go to try a new tool and I follow their guide and then I'm like, okay, great, I want to use CSS modules. And so I swap it out and it's weird. And then I have to go do some Googling, and then I've unplugged that. And then I'm like, okay, now I want to use this thing, and like that goes weird. And then I find out that it's because you got to use this special naming thing or install this adapter. And so you just find yourself in these tiny little holes that are inconvenient when you get set up. And you only have to set it up once for the project. So it takes you an hour maybe, and you forget how it works. So then on your next project, you have to do it all over again, right? And what I love here is that this is it just kind of goes away. Like you're like, oh, just
Mhm.
include this ass directly, and Slinkity will take care of it for you.
Yeah. I mean, it's not even us, it's Vite. Like we didn't do anything to get that working actually. The most important thing is like just make sure the pipes are set up. Like we're the glue
Mm-hmm.
between two very large tools. So
Let me
yeah,
pull
and we
up.
also support Vite configs. So if you're like configuring post CSS, you want to set up Tailwind, super easy to set that up as well. And yes, this is worth mentioning. Good
Yeah,
training.
I did an episode with Sunil where we talked about ES Build, which is the underpinning technology in Vite. Vite is what we use to build the project in here. This is a very good episode if you are interested in why this is exciting, why it's kind of honestly a game changer. It opens up a whole new generation of dev tooling, which is what we're seeing as Slinkity and Astro and all of these tools are starting to be built on top of Vite that just add incredible DX, and they're fast. Like Vite is so silly fast, and that is yeah. Anyways, go watch that episode. It's a good one.
That's a good one.
So, all right,
Yeah.
what else do you want to show off here? What should we make sure we cover in our next 40 minutes that we have together?
Yeah, there's so many things. Well, I assume that you're more comfortable using React than viewers felt, but I will at least ask, like, which of the three do you want to use to build something?
I'm most familiar with React, so we'll probably be fastest there.
Makes sense, yeah. It's like sparkling or stilled. It's cool that you can just use whatever you want if you'd like. But I at least wanted to show this to everyone. Like, if you're a Vue developer, yes, you can render a Vue page. You can also use scope styles. Like, if you look at that Vue page, all of that was written with like a scope style tag at the bottom. So you can scope them to just that page, just your component, etc. And that's kind of it. So from here, I mean, we can do all sorts of things. I was thinking that maybe we could build sort of like a basic storefront of t-shirts that you could purchase.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. And that's the repo that I mentioned to you to clone. It's just a few assets that we can plug into this guy. So we have some data.
Got it. I have that open to the side so that I have some things ready. Do you want me to copy things over?
Yeah, I'll explain like kind of what to copy where. Yes. And
So
I
I
did
have
detail on the README as well.
data and images,
Correct.
and I'm
yes.
a lot of possum related things, always exciting.
Yes. I'm excited
Okay.
to get them all on the page for the reveal. These are 11 T's for Eleventy that we put together a couple months ago. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You better believe it. Gonna shout out to people in the audience that helped come up with the ideas. But as long as I can make the worst puns possible, I think possible. I think we've done our job.
Oh my God. This is going to be the first episode that I have to leave early.
Well, this should
Okay,
have gone.
I'm ready. I've recovered.
Let's do it. Good. I have it. Let's copy in a few files. So we can copy that images directory into
Got it.
we can actually copy it a couple places. I say put it in public. Because this is something that we've wired up to pass through copy. Oh yeah, I remember this.
Let me grab all of these.
Yeah, grab them all and put them in images. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll just drop that one out.
Meant to. Yeah, all right, cool. And the second piece is going to be a data file that reaches for all these images and wires them up to some routes. So if we check out data, take that entire underscore data folder and put it under source. And this is an Eleventyism, by the way.
Okay, so we've got our Eleventy folder. Do you want me to? YAML, JSON. Indeed.
Nice.
Okay, so here we've got.
Yes, and also, can you find and replace underscore assets with images? I meant to do this before the stream. I forgot.
Okay, let's. How about I just do this?
Yeah. That's how I like to
All
do
right.
it. Perfect. Okay, cool. So that will reference all of the images that we have in there. And then public will be passed through copied to our build output. And the last thing we need to do is configure Eleventy to understand YAML because it doesn't understand it out of the box. So
Okay.
if you don't mind, there's an Eleventy.js file in that other directory, and we can just replace our current config with this config. The only thing it really adds is YAML. Yeah, sure.
Okay. So
And
here's the data extension, which will do the YAML load. And then we have a pass-through copy for the public folder, which is what you were saying. We use Nunjux as our default, and we have a source input directory. And interestingly, nothing in here about React, Vue, Svelte, anything like that. That's all handled by Slinkity kind of transparently.
Yeah, exactly. Eleventy is kind of the data layer, and we are the view layer, sort of extending the templates that they have. So we stay out of your way if you got a cool Eleventy setup. So yeah, and you might need to install JS-YAML so that we can actually convert it.
Good call.
It found the gzip though, which is interesting. I guess it just kind of looks that up.
Who knows? It might have been a peer dependency of something else too.
Extensions are cool. So yeah, okay. Now we load YAML, and at the moment it's not really going to do much because we're not putting the data anywhere.
Right.
So what we can do is you can make like a new route on in source, maybe delete the markdown and make a new one, or make like a storefront.md or
like for the index, you mean?
Yeah. Or actually, we'll use JSX to demo that. So if you want to replace this file with the JSX version.
Got it. So I'm going to index.jsx, and then we'll do some basic things. So the first thing I want to do is I can export a const called front matter. It was a capital M like that?
Yes, it is.
And then you called these 11Ts. Is that how you did it?
Sure. Yes. Perfect.
Do we want to use a default layout as layout?
Yeah.
And
it's yeah.
Okay, so we can start there and then export default index, or I'm going to call this storefront so that if we get errors, they will be clearer. And I'm going to start by just saying
storefront.
All right.
And one last call out. You need to import React at the top of the file. I'm taking you back in time. I'm sorry.
Okay.
This is because there is a snippet, and we put this on our docs. If you want to put this at the top automatically, you can set up a Vite config to do it. But by default, ESBuild doesn't do this because it's a Babel thing. We're not using Babel anymore. So all sorts of things. Restart that server now. So it's interesting, but it's like, you know.
I screwed something up.
Storefront is not defined. Okay.
Export default.
Oh, const.
Oh, yeah.
Or, you know.
Nope, I got to do it as a function. So let's just clean that up. There, that should do the thing.
Yeah, these days I don't use arrows anymore.
Jeez.
I don't know. All right, cool. Now we got a file. Very cool.
And hey,
the storefront. Okie doke. So you can see it generates a heading for us with the layout, and now we have a basic page. So of course our storefront doesn't sell anything.
Doubled these up. Shouldn't have done it. There we go. All right, now I'm ready. You shouldn't have done that. You're just an H1. All right.
So now that we have this, it's probably worth loading in our t-shirts. So what's nice is all Eleventy data is on props right now. So you can literally destructure t-shirts. And
come on. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's just there.
Game changer.
Boom.
So now what I can do to show this is we can dump
JSON stringify null too. I memorized it for the stream. Nice.
My favorite debugging command.
Woo!
Okay. All right. This right here is worth the price of admission. Having the data automatically injected into the props is just chef's kiss. Beautifully done.
It feels good. Yep. And if you want to type it, you could change this to a TSX file and have fun. I won't judge.
Cool. All right. I am not going to subject y'all to watching me write TypeScript, but
but the option is there. if you like that. So yeah, global data comes in. Front matter is available as well if you want to pull in the title and layout for whatever reason. That's how the cascade works. Is like you could have a directory of data as well,
That
and
is
we
really
pipe it
nice.
in. And the caveat, of course, is if you're this is a non-hydrated page, so we're able to just pass them all to you blindly. But if you were to hydrate the page, you have to be specific about which props your page needs so we don't ship an enormous bundle of information for hydration. So
Gotcha.
that's a thing.
Oh yeah. Because like as an example, I have learnwithjason.dev where I ship all the episodes with the transcripts as part of the initial build because each page needs the transcript. But if that got bundled into the episodes page, it would be like a gigabyte worth of data. So I have to make sure that that doesn't get included in the data that goes to that particular page.
Yeah. And we can try that if you want, because I think it'll be something people sometimes use. Like if you were to, like in the front matter, say hydrate, you could create an object that takes in how I'm going to hydrate, and then you specify which props are going to be passed. So you could say mode.
So and eager means like as soon as it's ready.
Yes, we have. It's in Astro, it's load and visible, I believe, are the two that they have. But for us, it's eager, load right away, or lazy, which is load when it scrolls onto the page. So now or later are what we support right now. And then the second argument to this is a function called props. And this takes in the same data that you see just below, and you return the bits of data that your page needs. So here we have t-shirts, and you can just.
So we could do something like that.
Exactly.
And then if you wanted to get like a monster piece of data in here that was, you know, like, I don't know, whatever it was, the full text of a novel, I could have that, but not ship it to the front end.
Exactly. So if you had like, you want to show all your episode titles, but not the transcripts, you just map out the episode titles. So then you're not shipping any transcripts.
Oh, that's a good point. So a way that we probably really would use this is, you know, maybe we don't need the images or something. We only need the slug. So we would just say like, you know, t-shirts data, and then we could do t-shirts dot map and get the T and just return, you know, whatever we needed, the title.
Yeah.
I forgot.
I think we'll need all three actually, but it's like, yes.
But so this is really, really nice. So, okay, I'm going to actually pop this out though, because we shouldn't hydrate until we need it. So let's keep it static.
I love it.
And now I need to set up a div, and inside of our div, actually, you know what we're going to use? We're going to use a section because that's more descriptive. All right. And then I can do something like, let's go t-shirts. Did you have code written for this that you wanted me to pull in, or do you want me to just like go on it? All right, so let's go t-shirt. And what I'm going to do is for each of these, I'm going to create a div with a key of, there was a t-shirt.slug I saw. Why can't I spell t-shirt today? And then go with this, and we needed t-shirt.name. And then we want the images. So for the images, we can go t-shirt.images.map. We'll get an image. And for the image, we can do like an image source image. It's just a string, so just image. And for the alt, we will set up, we'll use the t-shirt name because we don't have an alt. So
yeah, it's the best we got.
Right, and then the other thing
describe my images. But here we are.
We'd probably want to link to this, which I'm not going to do just yet because we haven't figured out how to do that.
Yeah, we're going to try a little pagination to get that going. But here they are, our beautiful, amazing t-shirt designs. They don't stop. They don't stop. Some are just full body if you're into that sort of thing. Others are more motivational. I'll shout out Ben Myers for anything as Possum Bowl, because that is a fan favorite. I actually did register Eleventy.fans. I might need to start a storefront. I don't know yet.
Sometimes it sometimes be like that. Oh boy. Yes.
Oh yes.
Excellent. All good things. Very, very good.
Yes. So here we are. We have t-shirts, but maybe we want to link to a page to purchase said t-shirt if you want to shamelessly wear one of these shirts. So what you can do is we can set up a new file in our source directory, and this will paginate all of our t-shirts. You can use JSX again. You can use whatever you like.
Okay, I'm fast with JSX, so let's start there. And I'm going to import React from React. I'm going to export const front matter, and that's going to be a layout of layout.
And for those wondering, yes, you can set a default layout, but it's an Eleventy thing, so we're not gonna.
So we're gonna need to figure out how to do the shirt title based on the shirt name. So we don't have that yet, and then I'm gonna export default function, and we'll call this shirt view. And in this, I need to return. We'll do another section, and that'll have the actually.
Yes, I see what you mean. So we'll figure out computing the title.
Yes.
Which should be, it should work. Yes, it works the same way that you do normal Eleventy data. So if you have,
I'm going to have to lean on you here because my Eleventy pagination data is copy paste at best.
Yes, I have to pull it up on the side. I always, it's a tough one, but I think. Let me try doing it from memory and see if I nail it. That would be amazing.
Okay. All right. Let's do it. All right, chat.
Let's do it.
Let me get bets in the chat on whether or not Ben is going to get this on the first try.
Bet against me. Keep your money safe. Yes,
oh, everybody believes in you.
All right.
Here we go.
All right. Pagination. Yes. And data, I think, t-shirts in a string, size 1, generate 1 t-shirt for each, alias, t-shirt. Cool. And that's pretty much everything. And then after pagination, comma, you can put a permalink to put it on the right route. So permalink, and this is a function. This is a cool thing we support.
Okay.
So we can construct whatever link we want to based on data. So data is what comes in here. You can destructure t-shirt actually. And then you can return a string. That's like insert the t-shirt dot slug, and then closing slash. Do not forget that.
Trailing slash.
Very necessary. Okay, and now check our terminal output. It'll tell us what pages got built.
Look at it go! First try.
I'm so happy.
All right, so let's go back and link to these and make sure that it did what we want. And I'm going to do, we'll do an href, celebratory boops. That's how you know you did something good. We're going to go t-shirt slug.
Slug. We got it.
Okay. So what we should see then is when I go back out here, these are all linked now. And if I click, we get our shirt details. Look at that. All right. So good things are happening. And that means then if I go into my shirts and I get my, so I should get my shirt is the detail that I get.
T-shirt.
T-shirt. That's right. Because that's what we aliased it to. And then
I can't see the code anymore. I have faith.
Oh. All right. Let me get it up here. Here we go. So then what we need is first we're going to go through the t-shirt.images.map, and that'll give us an image. And I'm going to return image source image and the alt of t-shirt shirt name.
Sure.
And fix that rogue curly brace.
Nice.
All right, so that should at least get us started. So if I click in here, good.
T-shirt.
And it's showing us the right thing. Oh my God, I just
So
realized that that's a possum inside there.
Oh yeah, I was waiting for that. That's my favorite one. I'll be honest, that is my favorite one.
So good.
Anyways.
All right, so how do I get a custom title?
Yeah, so you can make an Eleventy computed key inside of this object we have here.
Inside this one?
No.
Or this one?
Yes. And this is a flag
Eleventy
for
computers.
Computers. And then you can say title again. And this is an arrow
do I
function
do it like
as well.
just like this?
Yeah. Yeah, basically the same thing. I don't totally know if this works, actually. This would be an Eleventy issue if it doesn't. It might, though.
Is Zach here for us to drag? Hey, look at it go.
Wow. So cool. Yeah.
All right.
And the cool thing we added was like, you don't need Eleventy computed for permalinks. So if you want to avoid it, you can do it there. But yeah.
Nice. Very nice. And so here's the other thing that I wanted to look at. So we are not hydrating this, but if we wanted, say, a cart or something, or like an add to cart thing here, can I want to build a new component that just for now, what I'll do is it won't actually work, but let's say add to cart.jsx, and this is going to export const add to cart, and what it's going to do is, oh wait, we got to import React.
Yeah.
So,
and it'll need to be a default export as well.
For any component?
Yes.
Okay.
I had a shower thought once of, oh my God, we don't support anything other than default. Like, oh no, that's an issue to log. But
okay.
anyways.
All right.
So well, then if you use it as a shortcode specifically, you could, like, if you were about to say, like, let's hydrate the whole page and use it, yeah, you could use a named one. But we're going to try using shortcodes to partially hydrate. We'll see how that goes. But yes.
Okay. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a little function that says update added. And what we will do is when you click this, it will set added to true. And down here, we're going to return a button. And that button is going to say added. It'll add to cart. Otherwise, it'll say, or wait, I did that backwards. It'll say,
oh, yeah.
Okay. So this is a component that I want hydrated, and then on click, we're going to call this update added. All right, so now we've got an interactive React component, and I want to use this. So I'm going to do the things that I know how to do best, which is import add to cart from, and is this the right way to do it?
Yep.
Okay, totally so then I want to add to cart. Cool. All right, so what I've done now is I have my button, but it's not working. So I want to make this hydrate.
Behold. So we have two options to do this. One is the stable way, and one is the super cool way. Let's try the super cool way first and see what happens. Okay. This is something that I threw together last night. So we're going to see what happens, but it's not going to be something we document or recommend. However, so let's go back to our other page, or let's go back to the code. Okay. So there's another prop that comes in here, and it's called __ Slinkity. This is kind of a special object that contains all of the helpers that you might want to use inside of your component. So with this object, you can destructure off another thing called shortcodes.
I actually don't remember how to destructure again.
Oh, it's just colon and then another curly. Yes.
All right. That, okay, yes. Cool. Okay. My brain was like, that's possible, right?
You can do that. You can go deeper. Yes. It's really confusing when it's like, you do this with TypeScript and then you realize I'm not using TypeScript correctly. It's so, oh my God, it gets me every time. But okay, we have our shortcodes. And with this, at the top, I want you to declare a const. It's going to be const add to cart, maybe. Add to cart, and capital A, actually.
Isn't this going to conflict with my imported add to cart?
We're going to remove it. Yes.
Oh!
We're importing it in a new way.
I understand now. I understand.
Sorry, yes. No problem. So now you can say shortcodes.react.
Like that?
And then in just lowercase react. And then in parentheses, the name of our component, which is add-to-cart. And this will go in the includes folder. It auto resolves.
Oh,
no problem.
Well,
so now you have a brand new add to cart that has now been inserted kind of as an island. So if you go back to our page, you should see it again.
Reload.
Yes. So this is not a hydrated component. This is just a component.
Right. Okay.
So if we want to hydrate it, drum roll, please. Let's see what happens. In the component itself.
I don't know what I'm doing. I'm sorry.
I'm not sure either. Can someone clip that? I need that. Okay. So now we have our component imported as a shortcode, which means we can choose whether to hydrate it or not. So
so I can just...
You don't need to export anything from here.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, you can choose to yeah, we probably should have looked into the markdown example from the starter a little bit more. But in that example, it showed how you can insert React into markdown, where you could say React, name of the component, whether or not to hydrate it, and then any props that you want to pass through to that component if you want to pass through some data. So we're going to do exactly the same sort of thing, where inside of shirts.jsx,
all right,
we can say add to cart, and on that guy right there, or actually, no, you can do it on the component.
On the component.
You can say hydrate equals eager.
Okay. And that's going to be the whole thing.
That's the whole thing. And now if this works.
Wait, I did it wrong.
Oh, wait, what?
Is it yelling?
It's not yelling. Let's check our console. Because we were getting an issue. All right.
Target container is not a...
It was working on my machine. I tried it on someone else's last night and realized, oh, shoot. I almost had him. So, in theory, this would hydrate the component. Good to know that's not quite working yet, but we will do it the other way.
Put it on the board.
Put it on the board. Hydrate equals dihydrate in JSX. Okay, cool. Amazing. Okay.
Hydrate
now let's
equals
hydrate the
dihydrate.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
So
I will post on Twitter the second this is working. So we can hydrate the whole page if we'd like. Sure. And now we'll need to do a few things here. So first off, we shouldn't have access to these props anymore because we need to use that props function that we were using earlier to supply the t-shirt. So you can like do mode eager props t-shirt. Coolio. And now we have that.
Okay, so then I won't have this one anymore.
Yep, you can remove that and import your component as you were before.
Add to cart from add to cart down there. And then this doesn't exist anymore, so we can take that off. Okay.
So now we've hydrated the page with just our t-shirt.
Ta-da!
We should be able to use it. Yay. So yes, this is your option. to hydrate which pages you need to hydrate. And of course, our homepage remains static. So any visitors coming to our site are just going to get that page instantly. But you use JSX the whole time. You didn't have to sort of compromise and use Nunjux or something else you're unfamiliar with. So
Yeah.
yes.
No, and I think this is sort of what we're after, right? Is like we're looking for that good balance between you've got the flexibility of using the language that you already have. Because I think the pushback that we'll hear is, if you've got a company that has a larger dev team and they're working on an app, and the app is, it's all behind auth, you're not, nothing can be statically rendered because it's all handled with sensitive data, so we can't have that sitting around in a static cache somewhere. So they're using React, they're using Angular, they're using Next, whatever. And as you're building that out, you then say, okay, but for the marketing site, we want you to build like a more performant site, and it can all be statically rendered, and you can't use React. And they're like, no, we're going to use whatever we know. And so that's why you're seeing, it doesn't make sense for a team to ship a static website with Next, but because they're building the app in Next, which it totally makes sense to do, they're saying, I want to use what I already know. And what I like about this is that it takes very little mental shift to move between write a component for Slinkity and write a component for Next, and the outcomes are drastically different in terms of, and you're serving different goals. For an app, yeah, I want all the server side props, and I want the ability to do these extra things. But on a like marketing site, I don't really want server side rendering on a marketing site. That to me shows that we've overcomplicated the design somehow. I want static. I want a little bit of interactivity. I want, but I want that experience of working in JSX in the language that I know. So I think that's you've opened a door that I really like, which is using the right tool for the job without forcing someone to throw out their existing toolbox.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You should be able to use the same primitives you already have, because most of it boils down to we have a system of components we'd like to use. But for things like Material UI, if you're reaching for that, it's like there are certainly components in Reach UI. Like I want to use, or not Reach UI, I love that one. But in Material, I know they have like a component for grids and Flexbox. And it's like, I'd love to use these layout components to just build a site really quickly. But now you have the option to use all of that guilt-free, basically, where you can use all these layout tools to craft a static site and then piecemeal choose which parts actually need hydration. And with that hydrate prop I was mentioning earlier, that would be possible. And there are more problems to work out, like sharing state between components. I remember excitingly tweeting you about how that could work. Deadlines are hard, but it is something that I really want to see happen, where it's like I hydrate just these like two components on the page and they both share some state, where it's like this guy says something and this guy responds to it. And being able to do that across your site, because that's where things get more app-like. So the ultimate path forward is like where we've kind of trashed the dichotomy of like, I use either this or this, and now it's a spectrum. And our only goal is to get people as far up that spectrum as we can using this tool here, or something like Astro, which is in a similar vein. So that's kind of where we're going with it. All while like there are a lot of people that use Eleventy. And there was like a comment from White Panther earlier about like Islands architecture is cool, but it's used in small scale and playground projects. And it's like, when will it be like the architecture my team uses? I mean, our best answer is like, well, if your team already uses Eleventy, we just give you superpowers. So if you want to keep using your stack, you're good. So at least on that end of the spectrum, it's kind of just letting them keep the tools they have and keep leveling up. But for someone trying to come from Next.js down to a tool like this, it's a tougher sell until we work out making it as app-like as we can with like shared state and single page apps and all of that cool stuff. So that'll be a tougher one. That'll take a long time probably to work out in a clean way.
And I have a suspicion that we're actually going to see the things grow together, because I think that, the presence of Slinkity and Astro and Isles and Solid.js and, these different frameworks that are opening the door to different, more performant ways of delivering content are putting pressure on the Gatsbys and the Next.js's and the Nuxts and the the more like all JavaScript everything frameworks that are shipping a lot of bloat in favor of interactivity and developer experience. They're getting pressure put on them by these new and emerging frameworks to set better defaults. And we've seen a response from companies where they're trying to. I saw the Next team talking about having a zero.js option. And I know they've had that in experimental for a while. And we're seeing discussion from other framework authors. And if you follow Ryan Carniato, was on the show talking about Solid. Where did I have this one open? Yeah, here it is. So this is Ryan talking about Solid. But if you follow Ryan on Twitter, he is always engaged in these really thoughtful conversations with framework authors across the whole spectrum about how we can push the envelope forward, how we can improve the ecosystem at large. And what I like is it felt for a while like we had just given up. We were like, whatever. We'll just build everything in React and Next. And the web's good enough. We're done building for the web. And ESBuild and Vite blew the door off that. And now everybody's like, oh, we can build something better than Next. And we're seeing that innovation happen, and we're seeing the pressure and it's good. Like, we want Next to improve, and Next is only going to improve if there's somebody pushing it. So this is like that good ecosystem pressure of innovation. They'll see what you create, you'll see what they create. We'll all take the best ideas from each other, and we'll see what comes out of it in a couple of years. And I am really, really confident and hopeful for just how good everything is going to get that stays on top of this in the space.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I actually had it turned into a 2-hour conversation with Ryan where we blocked off a little lunch talk, and it was like, oh my God, there's so many problems we got to solve. But yeah, it's interesting because he maintains a component framework that's based on JSX. And it's like, does it need a home of do we need Next.js for Solid? The whole new framework for it. But then it's emerging during this time where we're getting more and more framework agnostic with our ideas. We're in Slinkity, we can whip up a Solid plugin in 30 minutes, and suddenly you can build your entire site with Solid. You can insert it into Markdown. You can use it as entire pages, do whatever you'd like. So it's I'm not sure if we need framework specific site builders anymore, because, well, you do for certain things like heavy apps. But even for that, Remix is talking about supporting Vue and Svelte down the road. So maybe that's not even true. But it's the problems that you have are you want to fetch data in a nice way and then roll them into a static site. So if you build a solution to fetch data and expose it like we showed here with front matter and Eleventy data files, it's why do we need to resolve this problem for every UI framework? It's the data part and the UI part are decoupled now. We've decoupled the Jamstack inside of itself. If you want, I know they talk about decoupling. It's now we've double decoupled. So it's do we need framework stuff anymore?
Yeah, and I think what's exciting about it is that we're starting to look at things not as you go, oh, I only build with Next, or I only build with Gatsby, or I only build with Angular. We're starting to become more pragmatic. And I think that's a really good sign of maturity for developers, that we're not looking at anything as a silver bullet. We've made this joke on the show before, but silver bullets only work for werewolf-shaped problems. And unfortunately, most problems are not that. And so you have to look at what's the goal you're trying to accomplish, what is the outcome you're trying to achieve, and based on the constraints that you have, what tool is going to get you the best outcomes with the best experience of working on it and the most maintainable future and all those things. And you make different trade-offs with different inputs and outputs. That to me is exciting. And the fact that the ecosystem is growing in a way that allows us to make those choices without having to wholesale switch our stack, that to me is very encouraging, because it shows that we're starting to think about this more maturely. We're not saying you have to go all in on one tool or the other. You should go all in on the ecosystem. Exactly. And the ecosystem is going to unlock a lot of doors for us. And you know, I'm also excited to see things like Eleventy, things like things like Remix are pushing us more back toward web standards, where we learn how to write HTML, we learn how to write vanilla JavaScript, and the thing that comes out of that is honestly a tool set that is so much bigger than any one meta framework or any one, you know, a React or a Vue or a Svelte. You can take vanilla JavaScript skills and semantic HTML skills and build anything, right? Because after you understand that core, everything else is just a flavor of the core. And I feel like when you only know React and you can't go deeper, it's like, I'm stuck in React. But so I'm excited that JavaScript
exactly.
Yeah, right. We're moving back toward a more portable skill set. And again, I think that points to a lot of that. To me, that's the maturity model for developers is you start with whatever you need to learn and to make money. You got to break into the industry. You got to get that first job. As you progress in your career, you're going to move deeper into the stack and get a more fundamental understanding. And that unlocks better decision making. That's how you become a principal or an architect. It unlocks more portability of skills. You can move to a different team, move to a modern stack with much less pain, and you can learn more quickly. All of those things are good. They're very good things. So I'm thrilled that people like you are out in the community doing this experimentation and pushing this stuff forward, because it's going to make the rest of things better for us. Because like you said, it's never been easier to get into web dev, hold on, I wrote this down.
Web dev has gotten so easy that it's gotten harder. It's what I
Yes, exactly, right? Like it's such a good way of putting that. And what I'm excited about is it feels like we've diverged to explore, and we're starting to find an opportunity where we can converge again into a new set of primitives that make life easier for us. With that, do you have any additional resources or things that you want people to look at if they want to take next steps?
Yes. I'm honestly going to shout out, go to our GitHub as soon as you can and look through our contributing guide in our issue logs. I have looked through all the contributing guides that other projects have and tried to take the best pieces into it. So it's a good onboarding experience if you want to try a new repo. So we explain everything in here, including how to set up a local project and debug as you're messing with Slinkity. Does my project still work? We explain all of that so that you can kind of get onboarded there. And I'm also trying to be as receptive as possible on our Discord channel. It's a channel within the Eleventy Discord. So I don't have a direct link to it, or I think it's in here. It's in this contributing guide. If you just go to the Eleventy Discord, there's a Slinkity channel. And in there, we're sort of discussing ideas, RFCs, whatever else. And definitely encourage you to hop in there, because I know issue logs are scary, but Discords are kind of friendly. So if you want to get involved in the project, I recommend it, because I feel like we're definitely in the phase of we're appealing to other developers and we want to get their input as much as possible. So if you want to contribute, it's a good time to do it. And our docs page is written in Slinkity as well. So if you want to just work on our docs, improve the styles or describe new things that we didn't describe well enough, it's all right here. And I'll also shout out Thomas for this reskinning, because it looks so cool.
It is very cool.
It's so much fun. Yeah, the retro theme, it's got to come back. And the hot pink,
all vaporwave all day, baby.
It's all right.
No, this is so much fun. Ben, thank you so much for spending some time with us. I am really excited about Slinkity. I'm excited about the corner of web development that it represents, and I'm excited about pushing the industry forward. So thank you for doing that. Everybody, please remember, every episode of Learn with Jason is live captioned. We've had Rachel here with us all day. Thank you so much, Rachel, for being here, from White Coat Captioning. And we have new sponsors today. We've got Netlify, keep on keeping on with Netlify, and then we've got NX, a monorepo tool, and Backlight, a design systems tool, both jumping in as new sponsors. Super excited to have them on the show. Thank you both very much for joining up. It's means a lot to me, helps me keep the lights on, helps me do more and more fun things with the show. So thank you. While you're looking at things on the website, make sure you go over to the schedule, because we got some bangers coming up, y'all. We are going to do a headless CMS content editing experience. We're going to look at things like shareable previews and fast search and stuff that you maybe thought you had to trade off if you switch to a headless CMS. And then we just got things coming. We're going to do fully type-safe APIs end to end. I'm really excited for Alex to explain what that phrase means. And then Adam Cowley is going to teach us about Neo4j. I'm really excited about that because that's a graph database that I know very little about. And just tons and tons coming up on top of that. So make sure you go over there, add on Google Calendar, follow on Twitch. You can subscribe on YouTube if you watch the replays instead of the live edition. And you can always follow on Twitter if you want more details as episodes go live. With that, we're going to call this one a success. Ben, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. Any parting words?
I wasn't prepared for this.
You want to kick to the whiteboard?
Yes. We only found one bug today, and that is a success. So thank you for coming, fellow Slinkity stands. I'm trying to start that
all
day.
wins, all days. Thanks so much, chat. We're going to go find somebody to raid. We will see you next time.
Woo! Take care, y'all.